Hey guys, I'm here to get into Martin Scorsese's The Aviator, which came out in the year 2004. And I saw this film before I even knew who Martin Scorsese was. So this hit me in a very different kind of way than about any of his others. And honestly, I think with age, I love this film even more. Undeniably, I know it's not exactly a perfect film like a lot of other Martin Scorsese films are, but I think it's an original film that perfectly lands this feeling I'm looking for in this exploration through a lot of films in the 2000s, which are just almost characters who are just overboard crazy and almost just like putting ourselves on a pedestal and executing some perfection, but ultimately delusion kind of gets to the best of them. And this is a perfect example through Howard Hughes, which is my favorite. Tie with his the character Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is my favorite from DiCaprio. I absolutely love this character and the eccentricity that DiCaprio conjures through this entire film. It feels like there's just so many things that can speak to the heart of passion, and like you see a man who just kind of goes through all these success and failures alike, but it always comes back to him, really. And it's just kind of like he operates on this way where once he kind of gains some power, he instantly just is crazy, basically. And it feels like Howard Hughes is just. It feels like he's just kind of a very crazy kind of eccentric because he had a chance to become this incredible man. He just kind of made some incredible money, met some amazing people, like a lot of celebrities along the way, gained a lot of status. But again, it's just a madness started to come around. It just kind of kicked in that a lot of his vision just needed some guidance, and it's like he doesn't really ever like open up to that along the way. And instead, he just kind of gets completely inner. It's honestly a very personal kind of film. I think in a lot of ways, this is why I wouldn't want to be as loud as him in the perfectionist areas, because I see where it looks like this, like going crazy basically in a room, and it's like now that I like grasp this picture, I think Mott probably seen this to me from the start. I think I just need to see this for myself because this is a lot of the 2000s were kind of saying, and that's why this holds up as a masterpiece. Last time I rewatched this, I felt it was the best feeling I'd ever had because as an adult, I think this kind of haunted me as a kid. I love this kid film because now I know why. Cause it's like, oh, delusion. I'm the kind of guy that's guilty of delusional thoughts, no matter how hard I study them, which is often. Sometimes a heat of a moment can override, and still I could fall into the depths of delusion. So this is a man who intensely, because it's like when you get all that attention, it does something to your perfectionist perspectives in a certain kind of way. It's like literally, a lot of men need to like hone that down. Howard Hughes just never figures that out. Like he just really becomes antisocial, really just kind of wants to live complete privacy for the rest of his life. And he kind of sees something beautiful in all of this, but ultimately he's just kind of at war with everything. It's like he's going paranoid, he's going mad. He's not exactly you can tell he's not a satisfied man necessarily. So Martin Scorsese kind of captures this man just kind of going through his own kind of like interesting sort of breakdown. It's a very different kind of breakdown than any other Martin Scorsese character. This is an original biopic. Like, this is different, completely different from the feeling of like Raging Bull or Goodfellas. This is just a lot less intense in like like everything going on around. There's no abuse or anything going on here. This is just almost like abuse within. A man who completely haunts himself to the point of his own sort of destruction, you could say. Like he kind of destroys himself in the end. But that's the end message that always stuck with me. I used to always rewind the scene of Way to the Future, because I'm like, okay, wow, that instills something, certainly. To always perceive the way of the future without even thinking too much about it. That's sort of how Howard Hughes operates. And now it's looking himself in the mirror for the first time. It's like, oh, wow, what is it to say that to yourself? It's always interesting people. Like Katharine Hepburn has a huge part of this film. Her character is really great. Like Howard Hughes never manages a decent relationship with a woman. You can tell he's a very cold to himself kind of guy, like right from the start. Which again, I think that's like good foundation the film laid on me. Maybe this just made me realize at a young age. And I think that's what I realized through life. And this is sort of what I'm about to kind of really get to the depths of. Or just growing up, a lot of the foundations of why I preferred film over, just intense intimacy with other people, and just in general. Because there really is just a lot of anxiety inside sometimes. When you feel like you see something perfectly, there is almost an intense sensitivity of like you don't want anyone to interrupt your train of thought. You also don't want to act like a jerk about it. And here's a man who kind of just falls too far and not particularly like abusive. He's just troubled. He's too troubled past the point of return, and that's the kind of downfall that Howard Hughes faces. Is an ultimate like, yeah, like a man who just achieves like literally like billionaire status. It's still like he just goes crazy with his power. He acts like insane basically for himself. And basically, just kind of shows how like that all that isolation and pain can ultimately be frightening, for yourself. And a lot of this is just, again, I mean, Kate Blanchett plays Katharine Hepburn. I got to mention, she's one of my favorite actresses of all time. I mean, she really is special. And this is a great, no exception. I mean, this is probably the first film of Kate Blanchett's I've ever seen. I instantly just was really fascinated by this performance. I love Leonardo DiCaprio in this film. Again, his energy is youthful. It still feels like it's closer to the Titanic days rather than Wolf of Wall Street, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But here, we're seeing a shade of DiCaprio that's just unique and original, because now we're seeing Madman. I think this is the first time he really was blowing people away with his acting. Like Departed came around and made it even better. Like it became like the same status as Brad Pitt. Literally, I love DiCaprio in this film because it is like a kind of a man going through a complete psychotic breakdown. He's just too emotionally unstable to handle too many people for too long. He just gets crazy. He's kind of like, and he has a lot of womanizing traits too. Again, I think I fear a lot of that. I've never gotten close because I don't know. I kind of fear that kind of behavior coming out. I like acting like an animal around women. I don't like that feeling. There's something that feels funny about it. But that's just what Howard Hughes kind of displays. Just sort of a hard time maintaining relationships with other people, and ultimately kind of falling into some mental health, insanity, like going through a lot of this, because he just has this like alter ego. There's like two sides to the man. He just wants to live in that one side with them. It makes sense when you watch it all unfold. And it feels very organic the way I think that laid on. It's just, it's got to have it, like for himself. In the end, because he gets overwhelmed with fear. It's like when you're a perfectionist, you're leaving all this impact on a lot of people. I think so much of anxiety is rooted in just fear of people. It's almost like you get all this anxiety of like, okay, people may not belong in the circle. You don't know what to say or do, kind of thing, and it can get very overwhelming. So you just kind of want to quietly cave away from it. And that's Howard Hughes. He's just a madman who is definitely full of a lot of contradictions. There's just something very strong about this man that ultimately good-hearted. But he's just really troubled. A really crazy troubled guy, ultimately to the point of return. That's kind of why I like that Loki. It's like, go insane in a chill way. This is almost a cautionary tale of being too insane almost in a negative sense, of becoming eccentric that's just too unbearably crazy about the little things, basically. Like the way a lot of these scenes play out. My favorite scene in this film is the bathroom scene, which really feels reminiscent of David Lynch moment, particularly because the way he's just like literally afraid to even touch, because he's so germaphobic. He can't even wash his hands because it's like so intense, and you can almost see in his eyes, like just kind of like him just completely realizing how insane he is. But he just keeps falling further and further into these depths. But I think that The Aviator is quite its own perfect original film for me. I'm not going to say I recommend this one to everyone, just like a lot of Martin Scorsese films, because this is really not a popular one. This honestly is not that much of a hit overall. This is just entirely a personal favorite. Because again, I saw this as a kid and I literally love this film. And I think I see it now and I love it even more because it's a continuing foundation of the mystique it laid on me growing up. I think that's the magic of a lot of films that came out in the 2000s. It feels like they tap into something that's interesting, entertaining, and then you get older and it's like, wow, okay, I strangely relate more in depth to a lot of what's going on here. So I really love them. Offbeat kind of cinematography that Martin Scorsese captures. This is certainly original. Again, how he kind of was with when he released After Hours. This just feels very jarring and strange for Martin Scorsese, and that's part of the fun. Aviator is kind of the similar kind of biopic because these color schemes are sometimes they just really feel like he's just kind of going for an experimentally just feeling that feels of its time, and I think it's just really cool personally. I mean, I don't really have any flaws in this film personally because I think it's completely entertaining the entire way through. Seeing a man rise in his ambitions, just become completely troubled along the way, slowly but surely. But the man who becomes delusional, but you have to kind of live in that delusion. That's the thing. When you have an overbearing sense of delusion, it's like you kind of just have to keep going. Anyway, so it's like there is something about this film that just really relates timelessly, as far as a cautionary tale of a madman going too far. A madman who actually had good things going, and he had good things to give to the world, good things, but ultimately he drove himself too mad and crazy. That's the tragedy that about every Martin Scorsese biopic typically has. I used to say Wolf of Wall Street. That was like one of my all-time favorite films when I first saw it, but honestly, it wore off of me because of just how intense it's having fun with everything going on around it. I'm not criticizing that. That is just exhausting because I think I just like the subtle end of that a lot better. And this is a lot more what I relate to. I think I'm not saying this is the better film than Wolf of Wall Street. That one is probably better technically, but this film is just originally more personal because I relate way more to this shade of DiCaprio's performing, and then this character is entirely more relatable to me than Jordan Belfort. And I'm a lot more fascinated by this in the end too because I'm just kind of seeing this man, yeah, decent social status, but he's just very serious. He has an extremely serious shade to him. And as he kind of gets further along, it's like, man, it's just too much almost. And literally, for his own spirit more than anything else. And I just like to see the cautionary tale in a lot of that. So, it's interesting how these underrated masterpieces of the 2000s are kind of coming back to me right now. That's certainly something opening up of like films that organically impacted me growing up. And now as an adult, it makes sense why, because, it's resonating and I needed to see that, as a process of lightening up, there's just so many shades of perfectionism that there's a shade of seriousness that comes with it. And just there's depths you don't need to take levels of serious. Like, this is just a great explanation as to just the deep depths of that. So, yeah, I mostly would just recommend this film, honestly, if you're a fan of Leonardo DiCaprio's acting, or just feel like you're interested in just seeing a biopic, a well-made biopic, of an interesting kind of downfall in spirit, not for a person, but a person that can easily rise above these kind of things too. That's why it's starting to say it's so personal to me that I'm like, I don't know who's going to see this and feel the same way. I really don't. But that's The Aviator.